So the first good we're going to talk about today is public goods. These are neither excludable nor rival. So a good is excludable if a person can be prevented from using the good if they don't pay for it. And rival goods are when one person's use of a good diminishes another person's use. Because public goods are not excludable nor rival, what arises is the free rider problem. This is when a person receives the benefit of a good but avoids having to pay for it. This market failure arises from externalities, and externalities emerge when a person engages in an activity that influences the well-being of a bystander who neither pays nor receives any compensation for that effect. So this is when the government steps in by providing a public good and paying for it with a tax revenue or some sort of government subsidy. So examples of these are national defense. We have a military in the United States. Ireland has a military. And this is something the government has to provide, because if they don't provide it, it's very difficult for regular everyday citizens to. And then another example is basic research, education. So programs that provide grants for students. One such example is SUSI grants. They allow eligible students to take out grants so they can receive third-level education. This benefits society and lifts everyone up as a result. The next question that arises is, when does the government know when to provide the services that are required to combat these market failures? This is done through a cost-benefit analysis. We've talked about this before, but it's a study that compares the costs and the benefits to the society by providing this public good. The way the government does this is they use the contingent valuation method, which is a survey-based approach. It places a monetary value on a good through getting respondents to state a preference. It analyzes their willingness to pay compared to the willingness to accept, which is how much a person would need to receive to put up with the cost of paying for that service. The next good we're going to talk about are common resources. These are goods that are rival, but they're not excludable. So these are very important. For example, clean air and water are probably the two most important public goods, because markets don't protect the environment. So there's a market failure due to a common resource problem. So it's not in the interest of a private company to lower their pollution rates unless there's a reason to. That's where taxation and carbon taxes and stuff like that come involved. But it's up to the government to protect those things. Another example is congested roads. So when someone drives on a road, they make the road more crowded and others have to drive slower. So the governments can charge drivers a toll, which is like a tax on the social cost of congestion, pollution, and paying for those roads that everyone gets to use. This is a good time to bring up the tragedy of the commons. I'm sure you've heard of it before, but it's a parable that illustrates why common resources get used more than is desirable from the standpoint of society as a whole. For example, in a small town, the economic activity that everyone engages in is raising sheep. Sheep graze on the land surrounding the town. This is the town common. But the town residents own the land collectively, and the land is plentiful, so therefore it's not a rival good. But as the population of the town grows and the number of sheep grazing on the town grows, the land becomes barren from too many sheep grazing. If the town shepherds had acted together, they could have reduced the sheep population to a size the town common could support. And this is where the tragedy of commons arises. Finally, we're going to talk about merit goods today. So these are goods that can be provided by the market, but they might be underconsumed. This arises because customers may have imperfect information about the benefits of the goods and are not able to value them appropriately. This is an example of intertemporal choice, which means decisions made today can affect choices facing individuals in the future. The benefits to a consumer may occur sometime in the future, but the price the consumer is asked to pay, it occurs in the present. So an example of this is education. In the future, you can have very beneficial effects, but you can't really calculate that when you're deciding if you want to pay for that education. Other examples are health insurance, car insurance, pension plans. These are all benefits that happen in the future, so people are less likely to pay for them in the present. The counterexample to merit goods are demerit goods. These are goods that are consumed if left to the market, such as tobacco, alcohol, non-medical, recreational drugs. They generate both private and social costs, which are not considered by the decision maker. So privately, you might hurt your own health, you might become addicted, but social cost is healthcare system, secondhand smoke, antisocial behavior, having to have the police deal with drunken people or drunk drivers as the worst possible example. Thanks. And that's all for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hi, guys. Today we're going to be talking about public goods, common resources, and merit goods. These goods fall into what is known as the public sector. This is the part of the economy where business activity is owned, financed, and controlled by the state, and goods and services are provided by the state on behalf of the population. For example, if you're talking about public transportation, there are some rail routes that would cost the average ticket about €500 per passenger per journey. Obviously, you wouldn't pay that for a short train trip, but the government has subsidies in place in which they pay the cost of that €500 per journey in order to provide this service to the public.